And we are live. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fresh Fit Podcast. We got a bonus Money Monday episode for you guys. We got George Gammon in the house, man. It's going to be lit. We're going to talk about a bunch of things. Reserve currency, cryptocurrency, the Fed, and a bunch of other things that you guys need to be aware of. Let's get into it, baby.
Money Tuesday. Let's go. We are back.
And we are back. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Fresh Fit Podcast. Regular edition. We're here with George Gammon, guys. We got a bonus episode for you guys today as far as Money Monday goes. I'm really excited about this. I spoke with George, I think, about a week and a half ago while you were coming to town. And he was like, hey, I'm going to be here. And I was like, all right, let's fucking do it. We got a lot to talk about anyway, man. So quick announcement, guys, patreon.com/freshfit. Check us out over there. We just posted a Frank Castle of a girl that pretty much got mad and
the red dress out. Girl.
Yeah, from last night's show.
At the last minute, too. I was stupid.
Yeah, she was stupid.
You should have seen her face. She was like,
yeah, she was mad.
Why come at us?
Yeah, my feelings.
Funny,
my feelings.
Conversation, girl.
But yeah, it just goes to show that girls really do be getting triggered, bro, off anything. But anyway, check us out over there, patreon.com/freshfit. Also, get us on Spotify, Google, and our podcast, every single platform you guys listen to podcasts.
And we also posted the yacht party with minorities on there too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On Patreon?
Yeah. Well, not the X-rated part, the regular part.
Okay, on
I got
Patreon.
edited out a lot of
behind the scenes stuff.
Titties out of that one.
Oh, okay. You could have put on. Okay, never mind. I won't even get into it. So yeah, guys. And then Chris, how often are we posting on here now?
About 4 times a week.
All right, about 4 times a week, guys. Now, so you guys are gonna get it pretty much Monday through Friday. So
and I uploaded the episode last night to Spotify. By the way.
Nice, awesome. So guys, check us out over there. Click the anchor link below. Anchor that FM/FreshFit.
Yeah.
George is like, what's going on here? By the way, yesterday was Chris's birthday, and we went to the club with him. He had a great time. So shout out to Chris, man.
Yeah, he had a great time. I was pissed.
Happy birthday, Chris.
Yeah. Hey, thanks.
Oh, I texted him, but you were asleep.
You could have came on the bus with us. We had like 20 girls in there.
Hey,
yeah, man.
like 1 a.m.
Yeah. I was like, set up the logistics for tomorrow. I know he's probably like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Text me at 1 in the morning.
Listen, man.
Man.
I was more looking forward to this than the fucking club. But anyway, also, guys, check us out, FreshandFitPodcast.com. Get the hoodies, merch, all that. Oh, we got new t-shirt concepts coming. Chris is actually in the process right now of making some new concepts for y'all.
Yep.
Clown World. What else? Fuck Your Feelings. We got a bunch of different new designs coming, so stay tuned to that. Also, check us out on Fresh Fit Clips, guys. On that channel, we post 2 clips per day. And there's somewhere between 2 to 10-minute clips on there. And then also check out our Fresh Fit Shorts. All those videos are 60 seconds or less. We need more subscribers on there, man. So go check that one out, guys, because those are like TikToks. And then Fresh has a vlog channel.
Guys, for behind the scenes, check out the vlog channel. We do live streams as well, coming very soon. And also, we did a party for Chris for his birthday. It's all on the vlog channel. Check it out. Mine even showed up to the club.
They dragged me there.
We dragged me there. And we had a party bus, a penthouse party, and in the club, it was crazy. Shout out to Chris for his birthday.
Hey.
I mean, late at night, we can understand what he was saying because he was drunk. But
yeah, I was lit.
Still like a lot of fun, so check it out.
Yeah. And then also, guys, check out my other YouTube channels called Fed1811. On there, I break down cases. I did the YSL case, guys, and getting a lot of love on it. It's like well over 200,000 views right now. That channel's only like 52K subs. So,
yeah,
the people have spoken. You guys really enjoyed it. And it's very thorough. I've not seen anyone else break down that YSL case to the degree that I did. I played the song lyrics on there for you guys, potentially getting hit with copyright, lyrics, all that that they're using as evidence.
Reach out to you.
Oh, a certain news organization reached out. They want to do an interview. I'm still thinking if I want to do it.
Just do it, man.
It's for, if I do it, it'll be only because Walt wants me to do it. But I was going to say no.
Listen, man. It's all for the podcast.
Yeah,
I jumped out of a plane for the podcast. You could go to do an interview.
Yeah, that's facts.
Yeah. That's why you're wearing the sweatshirt today.
Yeah,
that's a big deal for you.
Yeah. Luckily, we're merching it too. He knows.
Fair enough. But today's not about me. It's not about the news either.
So
we're here with George fucking Gammon, baby.
The legend himself.
Yes. George, welcome to the show, man. We're excited to have you back here. You were here, what, like maybe a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. And can you give the people, we know who you are, we watch your content, but can you introduce yourself to the people so they know who you are?
Yeah, I've got a channel on macroeconomics. One is just George Gammon.
Mhm.
And I do a lot of whiteboard videos like this.
Yeah, we got the whiteboard out too, guys.
Listen, man, live in color.
Live in color, baby.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, where we just discuss things like the Fed and quantitative easing and a lot of the stuff that you hear in the news if you watch CNBC, like the Jerome Powell raising interest rates and how that's affecting the stock market, if they're going to do quantitative tightening, and are they raising by 25 basis points or 50 basis points? And lately, the Japanese yen has been crashing against the dollar.
Okay.
And probably a lot of your audience have heard in the news that we have super high rates of inflation, CPI.
Yeah.
The price of goods and services is really going up. And that's not just in the United States. It's also in Japan. That's in Europe, especially the UK. We know about the food shortages. We know about energy shortages, the prices of natural gas and oil. Therefore, the gasoline that people pay at the pump is just going parabolic. And we talk about all that stuff and more.
Yeah, man, it's doomsday coming soon, I see. So what do you think as far as like the way things are right now with the war and all the things you just mentioned, where do you see we're headed here in the next?
Yeah, I think the last time we were on, we discussed how there could be a lot of headwinds for the stock market.
Yeah.
Because we have this very high rate of inflation. The Fed, usually what they do is they try to raise interest rates to slow down the economy. And that usually brings down the rate of inflation. At least that's the theory, right? The problem that we have right now is we have all this debt. So we have sovereign debt, which is the government, how much they owe all those people that they've issued treasuries to or that have bought the treasuries.
Can you explain to the people how that works, just so they kind of see when they know when they say, oh, well, the government's a debt. I don't think a lot of people understand what they mean by that.
Yeah. So what happens is the revenue, if you look at the government like a business, their revenue is just generated through taxes.
Okay. That's the only way they collect revenue, really.
Right. So if they spend money in addition to what they collect in taxes, they've got to borrow the money to spend it. So the way they borrow money is they issue treasuries. Just like a corporation would issue bonds. They have to borrow the money. So
what's a treasury?
So treasury is just a bond that's issued by the government. So that's the government. Let's say they issue a 10-year treasury and you buy the treasury. They're giving that to you. So it's your asset and it's their liability. They're saying, we're going to pay you a certain amount of interest over the next 10 years. And then we're going to make payments to you. And you agree on that. So you're like, yes, I'll loan the government $1 million or something.
But aren't they the ones giving themselves the bonds? Or
no, they're selling them. So let's say that you're the government. And that you're someone that's buying the treasury. So you would say, okay, Fresh, I need $1 million loan. And then he says, okay, I'll give you the $1 million. So he gives you the $1 million.
He's a private citizen or a private entity?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you give him an IOU.
Okay.
So that IOU would be a bond.
Okay.
And if the government gives an IOU, we call it a treasury.
Okay. So it's an IOU. I think that'll be a lot easier for the audience to understand.
So many IOUs.
Well, right now we have about $30 trillion
in IOUs.
IOUs.
There you go. Trillion.
And there you go, guys. That's why I'm glad we got George Gammon here to explain it for you guys.
Yeah, so what happens is a lot of those IOUs are short term. So we were talking about a loan for 10 years, but if you lent Fit money for just let's say 6 months, he would have to pay that back in a very short period of time. Whereas if you lent him the money for 30 years at a specified interest rate, then he wouldn't have to worry too much about what interest rates do over the next 6 months, right? So the position the government's in right now is about, let's say 10 or 12 trillion, maybe even more now. Of that 30 trillion, it matures in the next year. So it's very short term in maturity.
Okay.
So what happens?
So the loan term comes to an end.
Right. They have to pay you back.
Okay.
So what happens if interest rates go up, then they don't have the money to pay you back. So they've got to borrow more
money
just to pay the people back.
Yeah.
Now
they call it rolling over the debt. And if they do that at a higher interest rate, then that makes the debt burden even harder to handle.
Gotcha.
So like you can imagine if you had a mortgage payment for $2,000.
Yeah.
And let's say that was at a 3%
That'd be a small
interest
house,
rate.
but yeah.
Let's say it was a 3% interest rate.
Yeah.
Well, if interest rates go up to 10%, now all of a sudden your mortgage payment is going to go from $2,000 up to, who knows, let's say $4,000.
Yeah.
So that's going to make that debt you owe a much higher burden from your monthly income.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same with the government.
Okay.
So my point there is with the government having these huge debts, it makes it very difficult for the Federal Reserve to raise interest rates.
Okay.
It's the same thing with corporations. Their debt is at all-time highs. And the same thing with consumers. We have consumer debt at all-time highs.
Yeah.
So the economy is very, not only fragile, but it's very susceptible to higher interest rates.
Okay.
And so what the Fed is trying to do right now is they're just trying to, it's this balancing act where, yes, we need to bring down the rate of inflation by increasing interest rates, but we can't do it too quickly or else we're going to break something. Okay. And if we break something, then that could be far worse than the inflation that we're trying to cure.
Okay.
And so, they did this back in 1981. For those of your viewers who have studied economics at all, they know a guy named Paul Volcker.
Okay.
He was the Fed chair at the time. He was very famous for breaking the back of inflation. The 1970s, inflationary decade. So he came in and he raised interest rates almost up to 19%.
On just like buying things or on home loans or what was he raised interest rates?
So that was the overnight rate that the Federal Reserve set. So all interest rates. So basically mortgage rates would be 19%.
What?
Plus whatever. Or
what? What the fuck? Could you imagine trying to get a house at 19% interest rate? Bro, people are losing their minds right now at 6%.
Sound the alarm, bro.
What the hell? It's not just home loans. It
Yeah.
would be all the money that's going to corporations. It would be credit card debt. It would be auto loans.
Car loans too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yo.
I was like, buy here, pay here. God damn, they're finessing you. Loan sharks.
George, quick question, just going back to what you're saying so I can make sure that we understand as the audience as well. So we borrowed this money. So we basically have a bunch of IOUs. Who did we borrow the money from predominantly? Are we talking about China? Did we borrow from private companies? Did we borrow it from other countries besides China?
Yeah, all the above.
Okay.
And private citizens.
So
you have what I call non-bank entities in the United States and outside. Just people, ordinary investors, retail investors.
What I'm getting, George, is that like the government will never be able to pay it back at this rate.
Oh, no chance they can pay it back. But they don't really have to pay it back. They just have to keep it to a level that's serviceable. And so the United States is in a position of having the global reserve currency, which allows us to create a lot more dollars than the domestic economy actually needs. And this is a huge benefit because if another country created as many dollars as we do out of thin air, their currency would depreciate very, very quickly. And the price of those treasuries would go down, the yield would go up, so it would restrict government spending. So we can get away with a lot more of that government deficit spending than other countries can.
So two things, George, real fast, so the audience understands. So can you break down what the reserve currency is? Because I think that's very important for the audience to know that the United States is the reserve currency and what that means specifically. And then you said deficit spending, which is basically
deficit. When the government runs a deficit, that means it's just spending more than it's collecting in taxes. So let's go back to 2020. That's a good example.
Which is why we do all the IOUs, I guess, because we're not able to generate enough through taxes. So like, hey, China, give me money. Hey, you private investor, give me money.
So let's just say that your monthly expenses were $10,000.
Okay.
And let's say 1 month your income was only $5,000.
Okay.
So you would have a $5,000 deficit. Right. So you'd have to go borrow $5,000 just to pay your bills. And then there you would owe someone $5,000 that you would have to pay them back at a future date.
Bam. Okay.
So that's the same position the government's in
right now,
except for they owe people $30 trillion.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, tax revenue is about maybe $3 trillion a year. So that's a very, very large deficit. My point is, if we didn't have the global reserve currency, they would not be able to run that high of a deficit.
We'd be like Venezuela, probably, right?
Well, it more like Argentina,
Okay.
probably, where the currency would really go down significantly, and that would increase the inflation rate because we're importing so many goods from other countries. So the price of those goods goes up, and then it really destroys the economy. It lowers the standard of living. We boot out all the politicians, and they don't want that. So it constrains the government. And also what happens is the people buying those bonds, if there's a significant amount of inflation, then they demand a higher interest rate. So that makes the burden on the government even larger for the existing debt they have. So it's really this free market system that constrains most governments, but it does not constrain the United States, at least to the same degree. So
and it's because we have that reserve currency status. And real quick, can you tell them what the reserve currency status is?
Yeah. So what happens is global trade, at least probably let's say 60 to 70%, is denominated in dollars. So let's just say that you're China.
Okay.
And I'm Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
Well, you need to buy oil from me, but we're going to settle that transaction in dollars, even though it does not involve the United States at all.
Yeah.
So
you have to buy I have to buy the oil from you, even though I'm China, love you a long time, and you're haram over there in Saudi Arabia, and you're signing. Yeah, racist jokes coming. Yeah, I'm Arab too, assholes. And I want to buy oil from you. I have to go ahead and take my what does China use? They use
yuan.
Yuan. I have to use Chinese yuan and convert it to US dollars to buy oil from you.
Yeah. Or
Saudi
you have
Arabia.
to have dollar cash flow.
Bam. Okay.
So this is why China, their exports to the United States are so important, because we're paying for those exports in dollars. So then they take those dollars and they can use those dollars to buy food, to buy fertilizer, to buy commodities, to buy oil, natural gas.
Oh, so they have to use dollars for food and everything else too. It's not just oil.
Almost all commodities are denominated in dollars.
Oh, I knew oil was, and I knew that's where the PetroDollar originates from, but I didn't realize for everything else too. So all the countries.
Yeah, and even and not just commodities, a lot of the stuff that corporations buy from each other, even if it doesn't involve the United States at all, it's going to settle in dollars.
Gotcha.
So that's why the dollar is really two completely separate currencies. It's a domestic currency, and then it's also a global currency.
Okay.
So what happens is when we print too many dollars in the United States, a lot of times those dollars leave the United States and go into the global system, and they just get sucked up by the global system because there's so much demand for those dollars because of global economic activity outside the United States. But if we didn't have all that demand for dollars because they're being used to such a great degree outside the United States, those dollars would continue to circulate in the United States, chasing goods and services, and that would mean the price of the stuff would go up a lot faster than it otherwise would, even though now, the CPI is at 8.2 or 3%. And you guys...
What's CPI stand for?
The Consumer Price Index.
Okay.
So that just means the government's measurement of how fast prices are increasing for the stuff that you guys buy daily.
Bam. Okay.
And I'm sure you've noticed it, whether it's...
gas,
bottle
milk.
service.
Yeah.
But
This nigga, bro.
He said he noticed bottle service going
but even
up.
if it's for the transport company, you're talking about doing a party last night.
Yeah.
With the transport company, I'll bet you they're charging a lot more than they were in 2019. Or you go down to Whole Foods, I guarantee you that's going to be more expensive. The rent that you're paying, that's going to be more expensive.
Even the food, like
absolutely.
I went to Subs on a run recently with some friends,
Oh,
and
that's a good spot.
they're like, yeah, we're raising prices because the material's hard to get, and also the food is harder to get as well. I was like, oh shit. By $2 more. It's not a lot more, but it's more money.
Yeah, but see where that really hits people is usually the rate of inflation, or the rate that goods and services are increasing in price exceeds the level that wages go up.
Bam.
Okay.
That's key.
So if you look at what we call real wage growth, and that's just the level of incomes or wages adjusted for the rate of inflation, we actually have negative real wage growth. So people's purchasing power, especially with the poor and middle class, is decreasing significantly. And that's one of the problems when the government sends out stimmy checks or PPP. Initially it sounds great. Well, we're helping people because they can't afford X, Y, and Z.
It's temporary.
Yeah, because we're locking them in a cage, basically. So we'll just go ahead and subsidize it with this quote unquote free money. But what they don't realize is that creates this inflationary spiral that we're living in right now. So instead of helping the poor and middle class, after a year or 2 years on net balance, it hurts them.
So I have a question. It costs money to print money, right?
No.
No? So there's no cost at all?
No.
So my thing is then, okay, if there's no cost to print money.
Well, there's a cost in the sense that people's purchasing power goes down, therefore their standard of living, because remember the wages don't go up at the same rate. So someone's going to pay. But as far as like, does the Federal Reserve have to actually, do they have an expense to actually create dollars? No, they don't.
So my thing is then, okay, if that's the case, when do you think the dollar is going to be like gone and only like digital currency is going to be a thing?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think it'll still be denominated in dollars, but I do think that we're moving faster and faster and faster towards a central bank digital currency, or we call it a CBDC.
Which we're going to talk about that today as well, guys, so don't worry.
Yeah, I actually did a presentation on this a couple weekends ago, and you've got to go all the way back to about 1513, the year.
Damn.
And a guy by the name of Machiavelli. You guys ever heard that?
Yeah.
You use the term Machiavellian.
Yeah.
And so Niccolo, I think his name was Niccolo Machiavelli, he was someone that wrote a book called The Prince. And this was a revolutionary book from the standpoint, it articulated how politicians could maintain, keep, and gain more power.
And control?
Yeah, because back then, everyone thought, it was kind of just implied that a good leader, or a good king or president or whatever they called them back then, they would have integrity and they would keep their word. And this is what a good king would do. But he came out and said, listen, guys, we're all lying to each other here. This is a bunch of BS. And he wrote a 90-page book that said, here's how you really stay in power. And it's basically doing the opposite. So if you guys have heard the phrase, the end justifies the means,
yes,
right? That came from Machiavelli.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That came from
Didn't know that.
his book, The Prince, right? So basically, the whole idea was, in order to do good, or in order to maintain your power, you have to be bad. You have to be morally bankrupt. And he just came out and said it. And that's why it was such a revolutionary book. And if you kind of fast forward through the centuries, you see that this book had a massive impact on global leaders, such as Stalin, such as Hitler. In fact, John Gotti, the mafia boss here in the United States,
I talked about him the other night,
would always reference The Prince by Machiavelli. And then you fast forward even further, and you come to a guy by the name of Henry Kissinger. So you guys have probably heard of Henry Kissinger. He was someone that was wildly influential. In fact, he was the one that got us on the petrodollar back in the early 1970s.
Okay, because I was actually going to ask
about... That was his brainchild, so to speak. And he was the one that kind of made it happen from an execution standpoint.
I'll let you finish this, then we'll talk about the petrodollar and then reserve currency.
Have you heard of Adam Weishaupt?
No.
Okay. Because it's not Illuminati, but like there's a guy back in the day, I think it was like the 16s or 1700s, where like he started like this community of people that wanted to control the world basically. And what happened was that like they came together and they kind of like they had a master plan saying, hey, at some level we have to control the government, the police, certain high profile entities, and then have it under $1 basically.
Yeah, global currency.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, and global government. And
you're talking about Machiavelli and
would actually would argue for both. I think he's gone on record many times for arguing for both. So back in, what's interesting, in 1967, Kissinger was teaching a seminar at Harvard.
Okay. And
he had one student in particular that was very influenced by these seminars. The guy's name was Klaus Schwab.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have heard of Klaus Schwab, the Great Reset Agenda. And this is something that's in the news a lot lately. And so Klaus Schwab started something called the World Economic Forum in 1971. And it was really a result of this influence by Kissinger. And so another thing that influenced Klaus and many of these other people, these politicians, was a gentleman by the name of Thomas Malthus, right? So Thomas Malthus was the first person that really articulated back in the 1800s that if we have exponential population growth in a world where with limited resources, that's going to cause big problems.
Yeah, of course.
So this is something that the global elite believe to be true. Okay, so going back to Kissinger, and I'm going to connect all these dots here.
Sure.
Going back to Kissinger, he adamantly believed, in fact, he was quoted many times as saying, if you control the food, you control the population.
Yeah.
If you control energy, you control countries. If you control money, you control the world.
The world. Yeah.
You see? So you have all these influences on the politicians that we have today. It started with Machiavelli, and then they were influenced heavily by Thomas Malthus.
Okay.
And now they're influenced by the World Economic Forum, and they take advantage of these things. So if you break down kind of what their three objectives are, it's actually fairly simple.
Yeah.
Because of this approach and this Malthusian view, they want to decrease the amount of energy use for people around the globe. They want us to use fewer resources.
Solar.
Well, they want us to use less. And we can get into that in a moment. They also want to decrease the birth rate. You see Bill Gates, even on his YouTube channel,
Depopulation.
he talks about how that's a big problem if the population goes from 7 billion up to 9 billion. And so then lastly, they want to just usurp power, control, and wealth. This is pretty much their game plan. So if you look at everything through that lens, it starts to make a lot more sense. We fast forward to today, and we say, okay, well, if we have an economic crisis, what does that allow them to do? Well, if we have an economic crisis, it allows them to present Americans and other people throughout the globe with a digital currency. Why? Because last time we sent out the stimmy checks, it was very cumbersome. We had to send it through the mail, and people didn't get it, and what were they spending it on? So the government had some sort of control over the money supply, but not to the degree to which they would if we had a central bank digital currency. So I think in the future, the next financial crisis we have, the next recession, depression, I think they're going to have everyone just download the Fed app, and that's going to be the first step, and that's going to instigate this central bank digital currency, which is going to give them ultimate control over the money supply, which is what Kissinger was talking about in the early 1970s, which was kind of the genesis of the petrodollar to begin with.
So
NWO.
Man, that was that right there, Brett, that breakdown.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
So we talked about the reserve U.S. having the reserve currency status, and to me, it sounds like the fact that we're able to do what we're doing without literally having our economy destroyed is because we have reserve currency status. Now, as far as the petrodollar, I guess would the petrodollar be just a component of being that reserve currency status?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you break that down for them real quick?
Sure. So what the petrodollar really is us telling OPEC, which are the oil producing nations for the most part, that you have to denominate your oil in dollars. And that's what creates a lot of this dollar demand outside of the United States.
Outside of the food.
If you could just wave the magic wand and all of a sudden all the oil and all the commodities were priced in yuan or in euros or yen or something,
we'd be in a lot
like
of trouble.
Well, all those dollars would come flooding back to the United States.
Yeah.
And our CPI, you think that inflation is high now.
Yeah.
I mean, the prices would be doubling probably every 6 months or
wow.
I mean, it would
it's
be
that bad.
Oh, it would be something that we have never seen or even thought possible here in the United States.
So this is pretty profound to me. So basically, from what we're discussing here, and correct me if I'm wrong here, please, George, you're the expert. The only reason the United States is afloat right here, right now, with the amount of debt that we have is because we have the reserve currency status and we have the petrodollar, which pretty much forces the entire world
of that.
Yeah, as a component of the reserve currency, which forces the entire world to do business and trade internationally, whether the United States is involved in a transaction or not, in U.S. dollars.
Yeah. So let me give another example that might break it down for you guys. Let's just say that that again, your monthly nut was your monthly expenses are $10,000, and you are making $5,000 a month. So every single month, you got to come up with an additional $5,000 that you have to borrow from Fresh. Right. Well, what happens is Fresh continues to give you this money, and then you are issuing him these treasuries.
Yep, the
right?
IOUs.
The IOUs, that's
Yeah.
right. And so when he is giving you this money, or if the banks are giving the money, or if the Fed, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole, but if the Fed is actually buying some of the treasuries, then they're creating new additional dollars and new money supply.
Mm-hmm.
So those dollars now have a place to go outside the United States, like we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
But if there's no use or no demand for those dollars outside the United States, then those dollars are going to come back to the United States because the Chinese can't use them.
Yeah.
The Argentinians can't use
Russians
them.
can't use them.
The
Well, they're not
Russians
using them
can't
now
use
anyway,
them.
right?
Right.
Probably.
So they're like, well, we're going to trade in these dollars that we have for U.S. assets. We're going to buy U.S. homes. So all those dollars come back in and start circulating in the U.S. economy, chasing the same amount of goods and services. And it's just pretty much simple. If you have more dollars chasing those goods and services, the price goes up.
One last question before, and guys, don't worry, I'll read super chats here in a second. I just think this is awesome stuff, man. I really hope you guys are enjoying this content. Do you foresee that we're going to lose reserve currency status?
Yeah, it's inevitable. Okay. Because the countries always lose reserves. I mean,
who was it before us?
The pound sterling.
The pound sterling was, which is the England.
Yeah, but it takes a long time.
Okay.
So you just see it gradually starting to deteriorate. So I wouldn't say that we're going to lose reserve status in the next year or 2 years, but it's going to happen 10, 15, 20 years.
Oh, you think in our lifetime?
Oh yeah, it'll happen in our lifetime.
Oh wow.
But it happens very, very slowly. And how does it happen? By other countries starting to do less and less business in dollars. Therefore, that demand goes down just slightly, gradually. But at a certain point, it goes down so much that they're using other currencies a lot more.
Who's the runner-up?
Well, right now there's no one.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no one to really replace the dollar.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that it can't continue to deteriorate as far as a percentage of global transactions.
Gotcha.
Let's say we're at 70% right now. And it just came out in the news that Saudi Arabia is starting to settle some of their transactions with China in yuan.
Oh, shit.
So now that doesn't mean that we go from 70% of transactions globally being settled in dollars down to 30, which would make a huge impact.
Of course.
But it just means that we go from 70, let's say, down to 68% or something like that. So it doesn't really move the needle. And especially when you have a war with Russia, Ukraine.
That's impacting it as well, right?
Yeah, because the dollar is the reserve currency, then that people want to buy dollars. And therefore, it makes the dollar actually go up in value. So right now, the dollar is higher in value against other currencies, or it's at its highest level relative to other currencies that it's been in the last, I would say, since 2002, 2004.
And I was talking about this the other day. I said, hey, like, even though I know we're not, inflation is here and everything is doomsday, the United States is still better off than a lot of other countries as far as like our dollar power compared to other countries.
Yeah, what's really tough to get your head around, and I think it's easiest if you look at the dollar as two completely separate currencies, is outside of the United States, the dollar is measured against the yen or measured against euro. So it's just measured against another fiat currency.
Yeah.
While inside the United States, it's really measured against the stuff you buy. So, whether it's transportation, gas, food at Whole Foods, or your insurance, your rent, stuff like that. So the dollar can go down in value against the stuff you buy daily, while at the same time, it's going up against the euro or up against the yen because those currencies are falling at a faster rate. So it's there's these that's why I think it's much easier if people look at those currencies, the dollar inside the United States and the dollar outside, as two completely separate forms of money.
Entities. And I think that's great. Then that makes so much more sense now that there's like, you got kind of your domestic US dollar.
Yeah, there you go.
And then you got your international US dollar.
You got it.
So
George, the supply demand dynamics are different for both.
Bam.
Real quick, George, do you believe in the New World Order? And if you do, how can someone kind of counteract this or like better themselves to like handle this pressure? Yeah,
well, I believe that these global politicians, and we'll call them the global elite, the World Economic Forum, the UN, the IMF, the Bill Gates, the Davos types, I believe that they have a specific objectives. They have a specific worldview, and they are going to take advantage of any crisis that comes our way to try to further those objectives.
Right.
So I don't know that I'd go so far as to say they were behind something like, we'll call it the beer bug, right? But if we do have a beer bug, they're going to sit back and say, okay, how can we leverage this? Right.
Yeah,
How can we leverage this to achieve those objectives? What are the 3 objectives? To decrease energy use,
Food.
to decrease the population growth or the birth rate, and to usurp power, control, and wealth. So if we have this global pandemic, okay, what can we do to achieve those objectives? Now we've got Russia invading Ukraine. So the global elite sit back and say, okay, well, how can we leverage this to achieve our objectives? And once you start looking at things through that lens, it makes a lot more sense. As an example, I'm sure all your viewers have seen just this massive push and propaganda that we have in the Western media for the United States to get involved with the war in Russia.
Yeah.
Now, they haven't explicitly come out and said it, but when you look at everything that, all the headlines, it's really that we've got good and evil, and the United States at some point is going to need to get involved. Okay. Well, if the United States gets involved with Russia, for the average citizen, that's not good, right?
Right.
But if you look at what purpose that serves and what objectives that would achieve for the global elite, well, let's think this through. If we have World War III, right? If we have a nuclear war, let's just go there, right?
Wow.
Is that going to reduce the amount of energy that people use?
100%.
Is it going to reduce the population?
100%.
Is it going to allow the global elite to usurp power and control?
100%.
And is it going to take us to a central bank digital currency?
100%.
Boom, there you go.
And also, out of chaos comes order.
Yeah. Well, and out of chaos, a lot of times comes a transition of power. And I think out of chaos, if you're going to change the entire monetary system to something like this central bank digital currency, you need chaos.
Yeah.
Because the people aren't going.
They're going to beg
if
for
times are normal, then people aren't going to willingly just say, okay, let's ban cash and let's move to this central bank digital currency. But if there's a crisis, and if it's for your safety, then we have to do this. We have to do this for national security. We have to have a central bank digital currency, or we have to do this because we're going into a financial crisis. We're going into a recession. We're going into a depression. And if we don't issue these stimulus checks, then it's going to be like the 1930s all over again. Well, what's the most efficient way to issue these checks? Well, we have to do it through a central bank digital currency.
Yeah.
We have to do it through Fed coin. And then all of a sudden, although, this emergency action, we look at it and we get emotional. I'm talking about the average Joe and Jane. What happens is 2, 3, 5 years later, we look back and say, oh, wait a minute. Look at how much power we just gave the government. Look at how much power we just gave the global elite. And it goes back to that Kissinger quote, right? Look at what's happening right now, or what's happened with the lockdowns and with the war. And then let's think this through, right? If you control the food supply, you control the people. We got food shortages. We got food prices going up everywhere around the world.
Yep.
Okay. The global elite are definitely influencing that. Okay. Then let's say the next step is if you control energy. All right. Well, what's happening right now? We have energy shortages.
Yep. Because the war.
That's right. What's happening is Europe is saying, okay, we're going to virtue signal and we're going to cut off Russian oil. We're going to cut off natural gas. We're going to do all these things. Well, who is that hurting? That's hurting the citizens of Europe. It isn't really hurting Russia to a great degree because they can always sell that to China.
Yeah.
So it's hurting the German people. It's hurting the people of the Eurozone to a significant, especially the poor and middle class.
I'll tell you this, George.
And it's conditioning people to do what? Use less energy, which is their number one objective. You see? So you've got to start looking at the world through that lens. And then let's go to the last bit of the Kissinger quote. And right now we have an inversion of the yield curve. We had a negative GDP print for the first quarter right here in the United States. So we have all these signs that are signaling recession. Plus, you have the Fed raising interest rates. Plus, you have the stock market crashing. You have crypto crashing. You have all these things. And then if the United States goes to war, what do you think is going to happen to the stock market? Well, that's going to collapse. Therefore, the economy collapses. And then that's when they can institute that third leg of the stool, which is implementing the central bank digital currency, which gives them control, not only of the food, not only of the energy, but now they have control of the money. As well.
My only issue is once that happens, let's say, for example, things are good. But let's say they say, hey, you know what? Anyone that does this thing here, we're going to wipe your bank account.
That's right.
You can't do anything. So now you're broke because they did this.
Well, that's what happens if they implement a central bank digital currency, and if they ban cash, that's the end game. That's where this road leads.
End of the world, guys.
Yeah, and Alex Jones predicted this too.
It's not the end of the world, but because I think, we go through a fourth turning, and I think people at the end of the day will revolt. And we, listen, the good news is there's far more of us than there is of them. So if you look at how people have created massive change in the past for the better, for freedom, liberty, and free market capitalism, it's people coming together. And you have a small group that turns into a big group, that turns into a bigger group, and that affects change. So going back to the fall of the Soviet Union, how did that happen? It's just you got 10 people, then you got 1,000, 10,000, 100,000, and pretty much you have everyone out in the street calling for change. And, like in the case of Romania, you go from having a dictator for 20 years, 10 days later, the guy's dead. And he had the police, he had the military, he had all these things on his side, but yet the people still prevailed. So one of the reasons I'm so adamant about this message is just to wake people up.
Yeah.
You wake people up to the reality, to what's happening in the world, and therefore we can come together as a group of individuals, regardless of our backgrounds, regardless of our cultural differences or our political views. We can come together as a group of people who value freedom, liberty, and free market capitalism, not only for us, but more importantly, for future generations.
Bam.
Well said.
So real quick, I'll read the chats, and I have definitely a comment on with the energy thing as far as like Europe. Chris, what do we got here? And guys, I hope you guys are enjoying this show, man. I was really looking forward to this thing.
This is deep.
Yeah, just bought stocks in Listerine. It's been up since Friday. That's for future, $5. All right. Walmart Bros. GG, tell FNF to have Peter Schiff on the podcast. Stiff drinks will definitely be necessary. Long time CG subscriber, or no, GG subscriber. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Fresh, can you read that?
We have here Skid McMarks, 50 bucks says, shout out to FNF from Sweden. Have you considered bringing Gavin McMinns on the show? Saw a clip of him on your Reddit sub, and he seems to be popular. Not sure who that is.
I don't know who that is either.
The solo one, 20 bucks says, FNF been a big fan. I'm currently starting up 2 small businesses. I want to make sure my hygiene is on point when attending these meetings with clients. Do you all have a cologne you suggest? I use Invictus, Paco Rabanne. You can use Gautier as well.
Those are some
YSL.
I will not tell you my cologne.
Free YSL.
Mine is secrets. I'll paying $7 Canadian. Thank you so much. I'll paying again $14. Big shout out to all you guys from Toronto. Hey, Myron, I seen one of Fresh's vlogs where you were still grinding on the boat. How do you stay focused among that lifestyle? Hey, also Terra Luna. Hey, man, just the drive to win has got to be greater than the drive to want to have fun. 300 a show. Ethereum bought. There you go, man. $2. Last thoughts. What's up, George? How much buffer do you think legalizing cannabis federally, billions, and cancellations of student debt would provide U.S.? That's a good question. We'll hold on to that one until later on. And then, guys, we'll probably do a short little Q&A at the end if we got some time, so don't worry. Lil Durk spent a whole M on my children. I was effed up getting meal plans. Lambo's dark, and it's still tints. Okay. Trump Gammon 2024, $5 from Raul. Mike's World, why can't we audit the Fed, and why does a private bank run our country? You guys are he's gonna explain that here in a second. And then Myron, the light skinned Tupac, and that's $5 from Dave Wright. All right, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate that. Chris, we caught up?
I think we have, let's see, a few more.
A few more. Okay, I'll read these. And we're gonna talk about real estate as well. Last thoughts, $5. Elon or Gates. One says we're not growing the population enough. The other says it's growing too fast. Which type of future is ideal for society?
Elon's correct.
That's right.
That we're not growing fast enough, right?
We need more people, not less, because what Gates and the central planners refuse to believe, because they believe that they are superior to other people. We can go into eugenics. That's kind of their background. But my position is, yes, we have this problem with a shortage of energy if you have exponential population growth.
Yeah.
But if you have more, let's say we have 2 billion more people, that means 2 billion more scientists.
Yeah.
That means 2 billion more smart people that can solve that problem.
Yeah.
And Malthus started talking about this way back in the 1800s. And every single time we have solve the problem through free market capitalism and the power of the people. We just have to allow them to continue to solve these problems.
Yeah.
And they'll figure it out. They'll figure out how to use energy better.
Yeah.
But the people can do it. The central planners cannot.
Gotcha. All eyes on okay, we got all eyes on the 10-year yield. Okay, like the goddamn video, Ninja Watcher. Thank you so much. Yeah, guys, like the fucking video, bro. There's 3,000 plus y'all in here, by the way. Lil Durk goes $5. I'm gonna get this money till I die. DIE, bring bottles to my section to my VIP. This guy's hilarious. Muammar Gaddafi trying to change the currency. $2 from D Nice. Last thoughts. I like Elon because you actually can see what he is doing and that there's no political objective. He just does things in abundance and actually helps people. George, what are your thoughts? I think he likes Elon, right? Yeah.
I think he's like everyone else. He has his good qualities and his bad qualities.
Of course. No,
I think, yeah.
Fire Ronan, I own 2 properties in Florida. Should I sell one property to remain liquid in case of a recession? No, keep them both. Don't sell. Zombie Man, I'm stationed in liquid in Japan. How can I start in real estate? I've been living overseas for 3 years and it's a challenge making passive income. I do crypto and stocks, but the best money is in real estate. For sure, bro. Get someone to help you out with buying a property in Japan. Sorry, in the United States. Can you meet Kevin for Money Mondays? Okay. I don't know who that is, but we'll see.
He's a YouTuber.
Oh yeah, he's very popular. I'm good buddies with him too. I can
you
connect you guys if you want.
Okay,
yeah,
let's do it. Cool.
I'm really good friends with him.
Let's do it.
And then Matthew, George, in a world where countries don't trust each other, financial systems like Russia getting kicked off SWIFT, would a decentralized crypto like Bitcoin make sense as a reserve currency? We're going to talk about that. Don't worry. And then last one here, $10. Get more guys like George on the pod. Also, thanks Myron for the harsh truths. It's helped harsh talk. Sorry, it's helped me make great changes in my life. No worries, M. We got you. So, George, and I want to say this real quick, and then we can get into your the board here, which is fantastic.
That's applicable to what we've been talking.
And he's
about.
A lot of you guys had questions about crypto and everything else like that. The board's gonna display here in a second.
You got one more real quick.
Last one here.
DLC. I really want to know podcast.
Respect to Brother Gammon. I discovered you on this platform. I've been hooked ever since. Keep leading from the front, gentlemen. That's what we're talking about, man.
There you go.
I watch George myself, man. So, guys, if I'm watching a man and you like the content, make sure you subscribe to him, like his videos, and check him out. So, last thing I was going to say before we go into the board, because you mentioned the energy thing. So, I was talking to this girl from Spain, and she was telling me that she doesn't want to go back to Spain because apparently electricity is extremely expensive. She was saying she was paying like something like 300-400 euros a month in electricity alone. And I was like, oh shit. And then I didn't tell her, I didn't say nothing. I just kind of like kept it to myself, but I thought to myself, this is because of the war. It's
because of the government's response to the war.
Exactly.
It's because they sanctioned Russia's energy.
Yeah.
And if they're taking less of the energy, that means prices go up because they have to have it because demand is very inelastic. And therefore, then that hurts the poor and middle class.
Because Russia is a huge exporter in natural gas.
Yep.
And
oil.
And oil. There we go.
And lumber and a lot of others.
Yeah.
But also, they're a huge exporter of what? Fertilizer. And what do you need fertilizer for?
Food.
Food.
There you go.
Bam.
Yo, do you believe on the Monsanto conspiracy?
I haven't looked into Monsanto too much.
Fresh on his conspiracy wave now, man.
It's like, it is heavily tied to finances and the government because if they control the money, they got you.
Yeah.
If they control the food, you can't do anything.
Well, remember, it's food, energy, money. That's for sure.
I have another one to add to that. Cameras. If they see everything that you do, you can't hide. Your phone is like a tracking device.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what happens is, I don't know if this is conspiratorial, but again, this is, even if it's not, it's something that I believe the politicians and the global elite will try to take advantage of at some point in time. So now, every single restaurant I go to, they don't even have a menu.
Yeah.
What do you have to do? You have to
scan
have the QR code. So you literally have to have your phone pretty much to do anything in the United States. Okay, well, think that one through. That means, can they track you without your phone? No. Can they track you with your phone? Yes. Easily. We're creating a society where we can't go anywhere with our phone. Said another way, we're creating a society where we can't go anywhere without being tracked.
I think the next step is the chip in your body to tell who you are. Let's say, for example, you don't have your phone on you.
Yeah.
At any time, they can identify, okay, this is John Schmo from this address, this number for SNN. Like basically, they could track you from like without this in your body.
Yeah, and I mean, I was reading a story today online where MasterCard is coming out with this technology that you can pay just through facial recognition.
Oh shit!
There you go.
So instead of taking your card and just like swiping it, you would just like look into the little eye scanner, and that would charge your account just based on your face. But again, the way we push back, it sounds crazy and it sounds antiquated, but the way we push back against this is don't let them ban cash.
Yeah.
Don't let them ban cash, because cash at the end of the day is what prevents them from doing all these things we're talking about. And cash, again, although it sounds old school, it's the way that you give power to the people because it's outside of the system.
Yeah.
And that's what, they want everything inside of the system. And I believe that's why they're going to push things more and more toward the central bank digital currency.
Well said.
So do you want to go into that with the board right now?
Yeah, sure.
Explain it. So can you kind of tell them what is on display here? And we're going to break this down for y'all.
Oh, there you go.
So we have, I'll let you take it away, George, because I don't know what's on that board.
Okay, great.
So you got a mic right below you. Yeah, grab that mic. And then
You don't need headphones.
Oh, I don't?
Does he?
yeah, I guess if you're gonna for the explanation part, he doesn't. Yeah, you can take them off. Yeah, because the explanation part. Yeah.
Whiteboard.
Yeah.
Going wild.
Yeah, there we go. So we got the whiteboard here for y'all. And George's gonna explain. So
the big thing here is we've got the Federal Reserve.
Oh, hold on, let me turn.
For the Fed.
Turn that mic on. That's
He's gonna turn the mic on for you right now.
Okay.
Yeah, you got a house here saying Fed. You got AL, TL, BRBR. I have no idea what that means.
Now we're good, George.
Okay, is the mic on?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So right here we've got the Federal Reserve, and they are the central bank. And then we also have just I put bank here, but this really represents the entire commercial banking system.
Okay.
All right, so the average Joe would just be the people like all of us, the people on your live stream. They're the people that just have an account with Wells Fargo, Chase, B of A, something like that.
Yeah.
So if they have, let's say, $1,000,
If you could just bring it closer to you, George. Yeah,
if they have $1,000 in their account, then they have a deposit at their local bank. Let's just say their checking account. That deposit is a liability of the bank. So this is their balance sheet. On the left, we've got assets. On the right, we've got liabilities. Okay. Now, those dollars were lent into existence. So let's just assume the asset to match up with those liabilities would be a loan. And then the liabilities would be the deposit, which is the asset or the dollars for the average Joe. That's the way the banking system is set up with someone's checking account. Okay. So now what happens is the Fed, they have assets and liabilities as well. Let's say their assets are treasuries and then a loan. And then their liabilities would be something called bank reserves. And these are denominated in dollars. Those are the assets for the banks themselves, the dollar assets, right? So if JP Morgan has $1 billion on their balance sheet, where are they going to park the money? Well, their bank is the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
So they're going to park those dollars at the Fed. So just like the average Joe's dollars are a liability of the commercial bank's dollars are a liability of the Fed.
Okay. So Bank of America, Chase, all these big banks that people are using, Wells Fargo, etc., they're storing their money at the Fed.
Correct.
They're not actually keeping it at the bank.
Correct. Well, they can, but they store a large portion of it at the Federal Reserve.
Okay.
And we just call those they're dollar, but we just call them bank reserves, just to distinguish between the two sets of dollars. So what would happen with a central bank digital currency? And most people say, well, George, what's the big deal about a central bank digital currency? Because really, I haven't used cash and I use an ATM. Aren't currencies already digital?
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
Yeah.
This is the big deal. If you
listen up, guys.
Yeah. If in the future you downloaded the Fed app, let's say to get your stimulus check, and that gives you, well, what would that do? Well, that would give the average Joe an account at the Fed.
Yeah.
Just like JP Morgan has an account with the Fed.
Yeah.
So what happens if all the accounts with the commercial banks, or the majority of them, go over to the Fed, it completely changes the dynamic, because they would ban cash, and then the Fed could print these dollars. Fresh was asking me how much it costs them to create additional dollars. They literally just go to a computer and type them into their screen. So
oh wow,
let's just say that this average Joe, they wanted to give him $5,000 a month in stimulus checks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they just go to his account and just add $5,000 every single month.
That's
and then he
crazy.
would have that purchasing power. And that sounds great, but here's the catch.
They could take it away as well.
That's right. And so let's just say that the average Joe needs to get a loan from the bank. Well, we've got to remember that the commercial bank, has something called a P&L, or profit and loss.
Mm-hmm.
The Fed has no P&L.
Oh.
See, the Fed can just print up these dollars at will. At will. And it doesn't matter if they lose money.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter if they have negative equity.
Yeah.
They can just print more dollars and continue to print and print and print and print and print and print. It's limitless, because it's literally them just typing digits into a computer screen, right? Or into someone's account.
And it's not regulated by any. And someone has super chatted this. Is this not regulated by anyone?
Well,
or?
technically, it's supposed to be regulated by the Federal Reserve Act, but they completely ignore that. And that's why.
So they got to regulate themselves?
Yeah. So they regulate themselves, basically. So if, let's say in the future, you want to get a home loan,
Mm-hmm.
instead of going to your local bank, you would have to go to Jerome Powell,
Wow.
who's head of the Federal Reserve. So, why does that matter? Because a bank is going to look at the average Joe, and they're going to look at his credit worthiness. They're going to look at his credit score, as an example.
Yep.
So if he has a 750 credit score, then there's a good chance that he gets this loan, and he might get it at a little bit lower interest rate than someone who has a 650 credit score. But pretty much 100% of the decision is based on the average Joe's ability to pay back that loan.
Yeah.
Right. Why? Because they have to make money. They have to lend money productively, or else they go broke.
Mm-hmm.
But the Fed can't go broke. They can print however much money they want.
Yeah.
So they can start issuing credit or loans to whomever they want, regardless of whether or not they can pay it back. So let's just say
that's huge, that they don't have a profit loss statement versus the regular bank does.
Right.
And you as well. Like when I buy a home, I have to send in my P&Ls. And the thing is, if it's over a month, they want another P&L.
Yeah.
Like they're really on top of it. Like, we need to know your profit loss statements almost down to the goddamn week. Versus the Fed, they don't have any P&Ls, which is very telling.
Right. So what this allows them to do effectively is, instead of using a credit score or your credit worthiness to issue a loan or to determine your interest rate, they can just use your social score. You see, so let's say they don't like your podcast.
What's the social score?
So let's say they don't like your podcast because it's politically incorrect.
Yeah.
And let's say, you know what? This is demeaning towards women. You guys are dangerous. You guys are spreading disinformation.
Yeah.
And therefore, we're gonna notch down your social score. Fresh, you started with a 10 social score, but now because of your podcast, you've got a 5 social score.
Wow.
So you're like, well,
maybe a 7. No one understands them.
So then let's just say, let's say that you're making a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, well, I want to buy a house, right? I want to buy something. I want to borrow some money, or you want to buy a car or something like that. Well, instead of going to your bank, now because your account is with the Fed, you have to go to Jerome Powell and say, hey, I want to get this loan. And he looks at you and says, oh, wait a minute. No, your social score is only a 5. And you say, yeah, but I'm making a lot of money. I can easily pay back the loan. So what?
They don't care.
So what? You're out of favor with the government. And a more realistic example would be like the truckers in Canada.
Okay.
You see, so Trudeau comes in and freezes their bank account. Well, just think how easy it would be for him to freeze their bank account if all of the accounts were held at the central bank.
Wow.
He would just have that on a switch. And then what he could do is he could also control the issuance of credit. So he could control who gets a loan, who does not get a loan, and at what interest rate they borrow the money. So this gives them complete control over the money system, which goes back to Kissinger, which goes back to Machiavelli.
So this means that if you're not on a government side at any point in time,
let's
say, for example, you're on their bad side, they can just cut you off instantly. Like, for example, social media.
Yeah.
We're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, Instagram.
Cancel you.
If they say, hey, fake news, or, oh, this is inappropriate content, or on some level, harassment, bullying, you're gone.
Yeah.
So the social score now for the feds is, hey, I don't like you. You're against us. You're gone.
Now, I'll say
or
this,
if you say something against the government, let's just say
like Trump.
Let's say you come out and say, well, and boy, those lockdowns, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They could just notch down your social score. Anything you say against the government, anything you say that is against the mainstream narrative, they would go ahead or they could notch down your credit score, and you have no way to fight back.
Doesn't China run something like this?
Yeah, they're starting that right now. Yeah.
Okay.
So you have no way to fight back now. But if there was cash,
you could fight back.
You could fight back.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you'd have something outside of the banking system that they didn't control. But if they go to a central bank digital currency,
you're screwed.
If they ban cash, then you are at the complete mercy of the government. And another thing, they just wipe out your account. They could just erase all purchasing power that you have, regardless of how much money you've made in the past or how much income you have coming in. So effectively what they do is they control you. They control what you say. Yeah. They control every single thing that you do, because you know that if you step out of line,
you're done.
Based on the mainstream narrative, you're not going to be able to put food on the table, even if you're a billionaire.
Now, I'm going to add it further. If they control the police system, the army, and you don't do what I say.
Right. Well, look what they did back in 2020, 21. They said, if you don't take the medicine, we'll call it, then we're going to fire you. So what does that leave us with? Yeah. The only people that are then in our police force, that are then part of the firefighters or the military, are people who obeyed the government.
Yeah.
So what does that mean moving forward? Is you distill it down and you weed out all the people that would have been rebellious and said, no, I'm going to stand up. I'm not going to take it anymore. You have pushed me too far.
Yeah.
So they've already got all those people out of the system, or at least I think that was probably their objective or one of their objectives with we'll call them the medicine mandates. Hopefully people know what I'm talking about.
With the we'll call it the jab guys. We're talking about the jab with the knee with the shots.
Saying that the military, you have to get this or you're out.
Yeah.
You know, with the fire department, the police department.
Yeah.
You have to get this or you're out.
Yep.
So who says no, I'm not going to do it. I'd rather be fired. It's the people who have that rebellious streak. The people who are complacent and say, yeah, here's my arm. Go nuts. It's for the greater good.
Yeah.
Those are the people that they want to keep in a position of power, because they know that they can control them easier in the future. And they know that the way we fight back is if we stand together and push back, just like the truckers did.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Powerful.
So, someone asked a pretty good question as far as like, would Bitcoin be would it take over as reserve currency in the future, since it's not really tied to any one country?
It depends. If we have a total global collapse of the fiat monetary system, then they're going to look for something else. They're going to look for something that they can instill confidence.
Yeah.
I think right now that would probably be gold. Like if it just, I think it's, again, this happens very slowly, but if it happened tomorrow, I think that global governments and people move to gold. Why? Because it's just historically proven. It's been there for 5,000 years. People kind of intuitively understand it. Now, you fast forward 10 years.
Silver? You think silver would be maybe number two?
Oh, yeah, it's a precious metal.
Okay.
But you fast forward 10 years, 15 years, maybe it's Bitcoin, because by that time, more people are accustomed to cryptocurrencies. More people are accustomed to using Bitcoin, and they get it. Right now, you know,
you go with the board, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, George, just out to your point. So, before my granddad passed, right? He spoke about kind of like, well, I'm telling you now, like behind the scenes, because he's part of this group, so to speak. I won't say what it is, but he's just saying basically like, I should buy hard assets that like aren't affected by this whole type of like, I want to say control, power scale.
Yeah.
So like real estate, tangible things I should buy in person, not like anything digital, because that can be tampered with.
That's right. Yeah, you want something that's outside of the banking system.
Right.
That's why people ask me for investment advice all the time. And, you know, I think we're in a commodity super cycle. I think we might have talked about that in our last show. And I can go into that in greater detail to give some people, you know, kind of what I'm doing with my own portfolio. But the very first thing that I say is you've got to have some purchasing power outside of the system. So whether that's Bitcoin that you actually hold on your own thumb drive, not on Coinbase or something, you know, or a physical gold Whether watches are a great store of value that are outside of the system. I like Rolexes because they really, really hold their value.
I like APs.
Oh, there you go. Something that you could take that to, let's just say that you were like, okay, I want to get the hell out of Miami. And I don't want anything to do with this social score. I don't want anything to do with the central bank digital currency. And they say, fine, Fresh, but we're going to seize all of your assets. You go nuts because I've got $450,000 worth of watches that I can just throw into my travel bag and I'm out. I'm in Argentina.
Right.
And that purchasing power, you could sell that watch and get probably just as much purchasing power in Argentina or in China or Singapore or wherever as you could right here in the United States. That is true freedom.
Bam.
But when you've got all of your, let's say $505 million in a checking account or a money market fund, now all of a sudden that's a liability of the bank, right? And we know we know what happened with the truckers. And we know what happened with the Russian central bank. We froze their assets, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah.
So they had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
They had to learn the hard way because they had most of their dollar assets on their balance sheet. I'm talking about Russia, the whole country.
Yep.
They had their dollar assets that were liabilities of a bank, and they saw how quickly the United States could seize those. So if they're willing to do it to the Russian central bank, you don't think they'd be willing to do it to you?
Yep.
And I tell you what,
and Russia's a real world superpower too.
Right. And that's one of the reasons why Russia has built up gold, so much gold reserve since 2014.
Really?
Because they got sanctioned in 2014.
Yes.
And
when they
looked at that. And
Crimea. They invaded Crimea.
That's right.
Yes.
So if you look
Ukraine.
if you look at their central bank's balance sheet since 2014, their gold reserves have gone parabolic.
Yeah.
Why?
They were prepared for this invasion. Like they were prepared for the sanctions. They're ready. They were like, I know the U.S. and Western Europe is going to fuck with us. It's cool. And they're building up the ruble. It's They did a good job.
They kind of, I think, went through a lot of game theory to try to figure out what would happen and set themselves up.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that they're in a perfect position by any means.
Yeah.
And I'm not defending Russia.
Yeah.
I think I dislike all governments equally. So I'm not, I don't think that Ukraine is good and Russia is bad. I think Russia's bad.
Yeah.
I think Ukraine's bad.
Yeah.
I think Canada's bad. I think Australia's bad.
Yeah.
US is bad. They're all terrible. And I stand up for the people of Ukraine. But I stand up for the people of Russia.
Yeah.
Just like I stand up for the people of Germany and the people of the United States.
Yeah.
It's not a country versus country thing. It's a people versus the government.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well said.
Understandable. Yeah, because I mean, when you go into this, so I could see the danger now if you were to do a central digital bank. How that would be.
Let's be real here.
Catastrophic.
There's an agenda going on. Basically, the government versus the people, and as a result, who has more control?
And it's not just the government. You see, you got to look at the global elite because they heavily influence the governments themselves. And the politicians. So we're moving into this world where they're trying to set up these partnerships globally between the politicians, the elite, the governments, and the big corporations.
Bohemian Grove.
And this is just the definition of fascism.
Yeah.
It's and they're just taking it to a global level. And the Davos types, the IMF.
Can you tell people what fascism is? Because some people might not know.
It's really where there's a partnership between the government and the corporations.
Bam.
So it's not that the government owns the corporation, but they're pulling all the strings.
They're friends.
Yeah, they're pulling all the strings
behind the scenes,
and they give them government issued monopolies. And so in free market capitalism, you wouldn't have all of this corporate power because you'd have all of these competitors that over time would come in and break down that power, break down that monopoly. But when you have big governments, then you have all of these monopolies because those big corporations don't have to compete with their competitors to get market share. They can just get favors from the government.
Wow.
You see, and that's really where you go into this world of fascism. But I think the global elite want to do that at a larger scale, not just within countries. They want to have a one world government, for lack of a better term, but one where there's no one that's elected, one that's just the elite, and they're the ones that are calling the shots. And it's run through the UN, it's run through the World Economic Forum, and it's run through the IMF, right? So they're talking about having central bank digital currencies at local levels, but the main digital currency they want is the currency of the IMF. That's the digital SDR. It's a special drawing right. That's the money that the IMF creates.
And what does the IMF stand for?
The International Monetary Fund.
Yeah.
So what they want in their perfect world is that locally in the United States and all these other countries, they would have a local central bank digital currency. But the reserve asset of the central banks themselves would be the digital SDR, which is controlled by the IMF.
Okay. Gotcha. Wow. Okay.
I'm not gonna lie, that was some legendary talk right there, bro.
Yeah, man. Holy
DeMarco?
shit. Yeah. Hope you guys are enjoying that. That's a pretty nice background right there, man. That's
Guys, this is a high IQ conversation,
very
man.
high
IQ.
Very, very high IQ conversation, man. All right, so I'll hit some of these chats real quick, and then we can open it up for Q&A, right, with the people? You got some time.
Yeah.
All right. Shout Elon Musk. Shout to Elon Musk. Elon Musk a fraud. Okay, and that's from Myron Jr. And then last thought said shout to Elon Musk so they can battle it out in the chat. Josh Smith. No, Mo Jr. Mo already has chips in his body. LMAO. Love you, Mo. Okay. What does George think about Bitcoin's potential use as currency like El Salvador and the Central African Republic?
Well, it's tough because it's not really at the state where you can use it for transactions. It's still kind of a digital asset. Yeah. So you might be able to get away with it there, although it's very expensive. But for Bitcoin to be transactional, I think it's going to take some more tech.
Okay.
And I think we'll get there. But you know, when it gets there, then it's going to be competing with these currencies.
Yeah.
And then you've got that war between the people we're talking about, the central planners, let's say, and the people who want a more decentralized approach.
Yeah. Okay. Props to FNF for having this rational, educated brother on the show. I'm subbing to GG right now. Food, energy, money, women, resist the slave mind. Guys, we got you guys on all ends, bro. Real talk, man. We teach you guys how to get in shape, get your money on point, prepare for any type of crazy crashes coming. I wanted to hit the real estate market too. Real quick.
Let's do it.
What's worse is that the U.S. government discourages people from carrying cash. Looking up civil asset forfeiture shows that carrying cash means the government can take your money without charging you with a crime. Yes, if you don't report 10,000 or more in monetary instruments, yes, the government can seize it from you. You know, but you got to just declare it, guys. If you declare it, you're fine. Customs ain't gonna fuck with you. Orion Knights, The Creature from Jekyll Island is a must-read for everyone in the sphere. I'm sure Gammon is familiar with it.
Yeah, the origins of the Fed. I actually spoke at G. Edward Griffin's conference called the Red Pill Conference.
Yeah, it's called Super Red Pill Book. Okay. Michael Mistro, Get Power, King Riches. Okay, when he's in States for sure. By Jasmine, they are Sony's taken with association to all the mega banks in Japan. Did you know Sony has a bank? Nor did, but we are going to make it. Okay, I didn't know that. All right, how does real gold and silver stand up? That's $2 from Blatant. We'll talk about precious metals here in a second. And then DL saying, I really want to know. Brother Gammon, I'm watching the EDK WTATA curve very closely. LOL, thank you for forcing me to think. I hope y'all truly listening to this, brother. This is a big boy game right here. Resisting the slave mind in action. Shout out to Bro Tate. Yeah, shout out to you, my friend. And then $5 from Pat Stedman's Polish passport. The social credit score reminded me of the Westworld season 3. You guys are hilarious, bro. Jasmine is the Japanese Bitcoin. It is backed by Sony and all of their banks. Look up MUFG and Security
Ties and Money Kit and at Sony, you will see.
Okay. And then $2, M. Gariza, just hanging out. And then last one, Homie Clicks. At this point, everywhere you live is bad. Better off living off the grid. Fair enough. Yeah. That's $10 from you. So should people start, before we transition over into real estate, should people start like just, because I have some silver myself. I don't have any gold, but should people start, trying to get gold bars or gold coins or?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you what I do with my personal portfolio.
Yeah, what do you do? Yeah.
I like to keep about 10% in physical gold.
Okay.
And that's just a hedge. It's to have something outside of the system. And then about 80% in investments, which I define as things that pay me to own them.
Okay.
So I think commodity producers are great right now. I'm not adding.
You get dividends back from having them?
Exactly.
Okay.
Like a rental property.
Okay.
And then the other 10% would just be speculative assets that really don't pay me to own them, but I think there's good asymmetry. A good example.
Are these like ETFs that you have, or?
They can be, but like uranium, I think is a great speculation right now.
Indexes and ETFs?
It's URA, I think is the main.
Okay. But that's what you hold, and you just take that, you make the money off the dividends or whatever.
Well, so with the speculative assets, usually those don't pay you to own them. So there's no dividend or anything like that. And actually, I for me personally, I like the Sprott uranium trust because they actually hold the physical uranium.
Oh, okay.
So if you hold a company, then you've got the counterparty risk of having a management team that doesn't do a good job.
Yeah.
Maybe they borrow too much money. who knows what can happen in a business where if you just buy uranium, then it's just a pure play. And so the Sprott Uranium Trusts, since they hold that physical uranium, that's more of a pure play on the price of uranium. And that's what I'm extremely bullish on over the next, call it 10, 15 years.
So it seems like when you're holding a hard asset like that, you want to be as close as possible to actually controlling it. You don't want fucking bonds, none of that shit. You want the actual hold, like the actual silver, the actual gold in your hand, as close to it as you can.
Yeah, because that's insurance, because that's outside of the banking system.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so real quick, we'll transition over to real estate. So I'll tell you what I've heard, and then you can give me your thoughts. From what I've heard, we're right around 5 to 5.5 million home shortage, for the standard family home, which is a 3.2 here in the United States. Interest rates are going up, but not too much. I mean, they're sitting at right about 6%. I closed on a house like 2 weeks ago. I think we were able to get it to at a 5.75. I bought some points back and everything else like that. Some people are speculating that we're going to have, another 2008 crash. From what I've seen and what I've looked at, I don't see that. And then I think inflation helps real estate, but I want to get your thoughts on it as far as what you think as far as how the market is right now, and then what you predict in the future.
Yeah. So with real estate, I think you've got to look at both sides of the equation. So you were just talking about the supply side of the equation.
Yeah.
Which it is true. It's at all-time, probably close to all-time lows, especially with starter homes. But you can destroy demand to a point where nominal prices would still come down, even though we have incredibly low supply. I think it's just a matter of how high will the Fed raise rates.
Okay.
Right? Like you were just talking about getting a mortgage for 6%.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's still doable. But what happens if the Fed takes, they're only at 75 basis points right now, the Fed funds rate.
Yeah.
And let's say mortgage rates are at 6%. All right. Well, the bond market is predicting the Fed will raise rates up to, call it 2.5%. All right. So what are mortgage rates going to be then? Let's say mortgage rates are at 8-9%. Okay. Well, that decreases significant amount of demand. Now you say, George, what does it matter? Because I'm locking in a 30-year fixed rate loan. It doesn't matter too much to you, but it definitely matters to the future buyers that could be buying the house that you just purchased. You see, so if your mortgage payment that you can afford is $2,000, and let's say mortgage rates go from 5% up to 10%, well, that means that let's say that $2,000 mortgage at 5% could buy you, let's say a $500,000 home.
Yeah.
At 10%, now you can only afford to buy, let's say, a $250,000 home. So that decreases aggregate demand significantly. Now, does that decrease demand to a point where it would go even lower than that supply equilibrium we were talking about earlier? I don't know, but it would definitely put downward pressure on prices that would try to combat that upward pressure that we're getting from the supply side of the equation, inflation, commodity prices going up, labor costs going up, that all contribute to the price of a home. I think that the starter homes are far more insulated.
They're safe
safer than the
for sure
the McMansions.
Yeah,
because you can
100%.
still build those McMansions and make a profit. You can't build a 1,500 square foot 3-bed 2-bath at a profit right now.
Yeah,
pretty much anywhere in the United States.
Agreed. Yes.
So it's tough for more supply to come online. Now there are variables there, right? So I was interviewing a former fund manager who used to manage a $20 billion fund. His name is Alfonso. He goes by Macro Alf on Twitter. And we were talking about BlackRock Blackstone, excuse me. Because you guys know that Blackstone has purchased a massive amount of these single family homes.
Yeah.
So
Zillow too.
Yeah. So if we say, okay, well, what could change that supply side? What could change that dynamic to where we go from an undersupply potentially to an oversupply, or at least from an undersupply to a point where nominal prices would come down based on existing aggregate demand, right? And we thought, well, they're holding all of these homes on their balance sheet because they're getting, let's say, a 5% yield. Well, there's some risk there. You've got tenants and toilets and all those other things that go along with rental properties.
Yeah.
If they could get let's say a 5 or 6% return on the 10-year treasury, There's no risk there for them. So then what they're going to do most likely is they would sell all of their rental homes. They would take that cash and they would buy treasuries. So that is an environment where we could see a lot of supply come online. Another thing,
which would decrease the prices.
Yeah, or could at least put a headwind on prices.
Yeah.
Another thing I saw in the news the other day is adjustable rate mortgages.
Yes,
are becoming far more popular.
Yes, they are,
because it gives people a way to still afford that home they had their heart set on a year ago when mortgage rates were 3%.
Yeah, and I honestly thought about doing an ARM. And guys, an adjustable rate mortgage basically it's a mortgage that you can go ahead and lock it at a fixed rate at 5, 7, or 10 years, and then after you're going to get like a balloon payment or somewhat, or the interest rate going to change, which you can go ahead and refinance before. But a lot of people have been doing it with the interest rates going up. And I actually thought about doing that myself. But I said, you know what? I'm going to hold on to this thing long term. So what I did instead was I bought points down, which is what I was explaining to you guys yesterday if you watched that real estate episode. But ARMs are very, very popular because a lot of people will buy it now, let it appreciate for a bit, get some cash flow, and then sell it in that 5-10 year period or whatever it may be.
If it appreciates.
Yeah. If it should, depending on the market, where you are, if you're like,
well, you got to think right now that, so in 2006, I don't know that anyone would argue we were not in a bubble, especially hindsight being 2020. And real estate prices adjusted for inflation are far higher today than they were in 2006. So
we talked about this yesterday.
Yeah, so you got to ask yourself, when I look at an asset to purchase, the first thing I say, I don't ask myself, is the price going up or down? I don't really care about that. I just ask myself, is it cheap or is it expensive? If it's cheap, I buy it. If it's expensive, I sell it or I don't buy it, right? And I don't think there's any argument right now for real estate being cheap. There's no way. If you look at a historical chart adjusted for inflation, it's incredibly expensive. Yeah. So there is a significant risk there. And especially if you got, now, I think if you're fixed rate and you've got good tenants, you got great positive cash flow,
good location,
you don't have a lot of risk because you don't have to sell. Even if prices went down by 50%, what do you care?
Yeah.
You're not selling.
Yeah.
So I could care less.
Yeah.
It's just like buying a McDonald's. I always use that example. If I buy a McDonald's, I'm buying it for that $200,000 a year of cash flow that it's throwing off, or a good recession-proof business. If my broker comes to me 2 years after I buy the McDonald's and says, George, I've got terrible news for you. If you sold your McDonald's today, you'd only get half of what you paid for it.
Who cares?
What? I don't care. I'm making my $200,000. I'm going to give this to my kids. I could care less. So where you really get in trouble is if rates go up significantly, because remember, the Fed's trying to fight inflation. Yeah. And the way they do that is take rates up and up and up and up. And I think they'll continue to take them up until they break something. They break something with the stock market. They break something with the housing market. They break something with the economy, or all of the above. So let's just say that in 5 years, you get that adjustable rate mortgage right now at 4.5%. And that's the max you can pay. Okay, that's $2,000 a month. That's your limit. That's your budget. And let's just say that we go through significant inflation over the next 5 years. Well, remember, first and foremost, that prices are going up faster than wages. Yeah. So this is going to decrease your purchasing power in and of itself, this high rate of inflation. And then the Fed continues to raise rates in this environment. Therefore, when you refinance in 5 years, your monthly payment goes from $2,000 a month up to $3,000 a month. And you're already being squeezed through inflation, even if you have your job. So now all of a sudden you can't afford that mortgage payment anymore. And if we do have nominal prices go down, well, now all of a sudden you get in a position where we were prior to the GFC, where you have all this forced liquidation and you have a lot of supply come online, and that brings down prices. And that just creates what we call a positive feedback loop. So the more prices come down, the faster people want to sell, and the more that makes prices go down even further. You see, so I'm not saying that's a prediction. I'm not saying that's going to
you're
happen,
just giving another scenario.
But I'm saying that the higher percentage of the overall mortgage market that's adjustable rate, the riskier the overall housing market is. And so I read a story the other day that the percentage of new mortgages that are adjustable rate have gone from like 3% up to like 11%.
Oh, that's actually really high. Wow.
A huge increase. Now,
because that's normally only investors get arms, like regular people that are just trying to buy and live in a house,
rehab, and
they're getting arms. So that tells me, and they said that refinances actually hit a peak last year as well. Because of the low interest
people
rates.
are trying, and that's another thing too. So you got to, if you were a seller, let's just say that the last year you've been thinking about selling your home. Okay. Well, you're paying attention to the real estate market. You're paying attention to mortgage rates, and you're saying to yourself, well, shoot, if mortgage rates continue to go up, that means my potential buyer is going to have less purchasing power to buy my house. So I better sell it right now. You see, so you have when interest rates go up, you're sucking all this demand from the future, because if someone was on the fence about buying, I'm buying right now. You see, when rates start going up, and then if someone's going to sell, well, I'm going to sell right now. So then what you have is this dynamic where if at a certain point you suck all those buyers in from the future, but the amount of sellers is increasing by the day, and then that could lead to that equilibrium or the supply imbalance that we have right now turning the other direction. And again, this is not a prediction. This is just trying to think through all the possibilities and trying to determine the probability of each one happening, so then you can make a better decision for your own personal situation. And we're all different. So for some people, buying a property right now at a 30-year fixed rate debt with good positive cash flow, that makes a lot of sense. For someone else, that let's say they had to do a cash out refi in 2 or 3 years, regardless of the market, that let's say they're negative cash flow. Okay, well, that doesn't make any sense at all.
And I think the biggest thing, because those are really some fantastic points for the people, and because these are the risks that you come into with real estate, even right now where it's a pretty good time to buy. I would say the way to mitigate those risks is buy properties, guys, that you're going to be able to rent out. Single family homes are very strong. They're easy to rent out. Duplexes, triplexes, good neighborhoods. And
school districts.
Make sure that you're getting a decent cash on cash return. If it's not cash flowing, do not buy, because I know some people, especially here in Miami recently, have been buying simply for appreciation, which I think is crazy. Very dangerous to do that.
Huge mistake.
So as long as you're buying it, it's cash flowing a good amount, guys. And you're buying property that you'll be able to rent out to families, those single family home, the duplexes, the triplexes, 2 to 3 bedrooms with 2 bathrooms, you're going to be in a pretty good position to mitigate some of that risk, I think. So, but buying like the mansions that you were mentioning, hell fucking no luxury real estate right now, guys.
Negative cash flow in general. Just stay away from a negative cash flow property where you're just playing the appreciation game, where it has to appreciate in order for you to make money. That's just that's a
recipe for disaster.
Jim Rogers says that's a quick way to the poorhouse.
Hell yeah, dude. So guys, that's how you're going to mitigate some of those risks, man, because families is what you want to be able to provide housing for. And then also, if you're going to be commercial, just make sure that you get commercial, something that you'll be able to rent out. Keep in mind that a lot of people are working from home now. Office space might not be as lucrative as it used to be. So
I know barbers are renting out like condos to do haircuts because one, they could control the environment, and 2, it's cheaper. They're renting
probably
unit.
It's cheaper than renting a chair at a store. Yeah.
And you make more money too, so it happens.
Yo, you guys are getting a lot of sauce today, man.
Saucy.
JSMT is going to be the way that institutions enter the market through crypto. They're legally compliant, backed by FSA. Coinbase backs them. Jasmine. Okay. That's from Kevin Samuels, rest in power.
And nobody's safe.
$2 EC. How much percent of gain on your crypto would you sell at? Is he asking me that?
Well, yeah, I think we maybe address the crypto market next, because
we could do that.
Yeah, Bitcoin being tied to the NASDAQ is concerning for me right now, being a long-term Bitcoin bull. Excuse me.
I'll read these right now, and then we'll get into crypto. And then I think, are the minorities here yet, or there? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like you guys are, every time you say that, it sounds like you're being wildly politically incorrect.
Oh,
are the minorities.
So there's a YouTube channel.
Minorities here.
Yeah, it's funny. That's their name on YouTube.
Just tell them to come on, bro.
The minorities.
What percentage of crypto, real estate, and metals should one have in their portfolio? Okay, we'll answer that. And then go to Smartman. Since the digital SDR is held by the IMF for all banks from every country, so logically the IMF will be controlling the world finances.
That's right.
And then Jasmine is a token that is backed by Sony. You will not eat the bugs. You will own the land. You will be happy only if you buy Jasmine. Thank me later. This guy's like over here pushing these coins. All right. So, okay, we can hit we'll transition over to crypto.
Yeah. So what we've seen lately is crypto pretty much in general is behaving as a risk asset. And so we had this huge growth in the NASDAQ. So all those Cathie Wood stocks, right? Like the tech stocks, those big names that everyone knows. So those were really going up. And then when the Fed came out in November of 2021 and even just started talking about increasing interest rates,
that
the NASDAQ
I was in the middle of doing deals.
Down.
I was in the middle of doing real estate deals, and everyone started panicking in the housing market because we were getting interest rates right around 4, or no, right around like the 3s. And then I remember because I was under contract for a couple houses getting ready to close, and they're like, "Oh, interest rates are spiking," blah blah, because the Fed made that announcement. I remember
it just when they make the announcement, because what happens is the Fed is saying that in the future we're going to be buying fewer mortgage-backed securities. So if those mortgage-backed securities aren't going on to, or those mortgages basically, if they're not going onto the Fed's balance sheet, or the Fed doesn't have P&L, so they don't care what price they buy the mortgages. But the banking system does have a P&L. So now if the banking system is absorbing all of those mortgages, they're like, they're going to demand a higher interest rate. Because they're taking on way more risk, especially if there's inflation risk. So that's why you see the Fed come out, and they didn't even raise rates at that time. Just talking about raising rates or decreasing the size of their balance sheet,
people were going crazy.
Buying fewer mortgages made the interest rates on mortgages actually increase. But the NASDAQ started going down, and it's gone down huge since that time. And it continues to go down every time the rate, the Fed becomes quote unquote hawkish. That means they're, talking about raising rates or being more aggressive and raising rates. The NASDAQ is continually under pressure. We've seen the ARK fund, that Cathie Wood's fund that holds a lot of those tech names. I mean, it's down, I don't know, from its all-time high, like 70%.
Oh, wow.
And unfortunately, what we've seen, and I say unfortunately because long-term, I'm bullish on Bitcoin. And I think it's something that everyone should have to have some purchasing power outside of the banking system. I think that's regardless of the price, I think that's the number one reason to hold some. But we've seen that Bitcoin has traded right alongside the NASDAQ. So every single day, the NASDAQ goes down, Bitcoin goes down.
It's down around, let me look right now.
Yeah, it's probably under 30,000.
Yeah, I saw it yesterday.
But isn't that scary though, to know that it's tied to the...
Yeah, because you want to own Bitcoin as a non-correlated asset. You don't want to own just a leverage play on the NASDAQ, which
34.91 right now,
which is what Bitcoin's doing.
30K.
As someone who likes it long term, I'm not adding to my position until a time where I see it trade where it doesn't trade in lockstep with the NASDAQ, where it is truly a non-correlated asset. And I think that if the Fed continues to raise rates to try to break something to bring down inflation, which I think is their game plan, you're going to see continued pressure, not only on the NASDAQ, but cryptocurrency.
Is Ethereum also it's tightly
it's the same thing. It's just trading as a risk asset. So, and then we just saw the crypto blow up the other day with Luna and with Terra, it's quote unquote a stable coin that basically went, I don't know what its value
I don't have
was
those two coins, but they went to
zero.
What, to zero?
Zero.
Oh shit. I didn't even see, because I only hold really
blew up
Bitcoin and
KSI,
Ethereum.
the YouTuber, lost millions in crypto.
And it was Luna, and it was
you don't lose until you sell,
Terra,
right?
the stable coin, or if it goes to zero, you just don't have a bid, and so then you lose a lot too. But yeah, so that was expected though. When you have what I call hysteria in the market, and everyone's buying, the price is always going up and up and up and up and up. You can get away with some of these stable coins that might not be that great. Everyone's making money. But what happens, like Warren Buffett said, is when the tide goes out, you can see who's swimming naked. And it's the same thing with these cryptocurrencies, and it's the same thing with the NASDAQ stocks. So again, if you're bullish on crypto, I think that's great, but I don't know that now is the time to add to your position. What I'm doing is I'm just waiting until they decouple from the NASDAQ and start trading independently, like gold, as an example, and then wait till we get some panic in the market. Like Michael Saylor, I've always said, once Michael Saylor starts to sell, then I'll really, really think about adding to my position.
What's Michael Saylor?
He's the guy that owns MicroStrategies, I believe is his company's name, who really started to just borrow all this money to buy Bitcoin. So he pretty much took his tech company and turned it into a Bitcoin ETF.
Gotcha.
Wow. And so he's just the bull of all bulls when it comes to Bitcoin. So when he starts to sell, okay, that means there's panic in the market. I want to buy.
and I'll tell you this too with cryptocurrency, and I've always said this to the guys out there. You never want your whole, wealth portfolio to consist of too much crypto. If you keep it, financial people say, 3%, whatever. I say as high as up to 10% at the most. But I know people that are like
all
70, 80% in cryptocurrency.
I know people that have no cash, no type of reserves, only crypto. I'm like, bro, that's scary.
Yeah, that's crazy way to
all
live
the money's
life,
there.
It is.
Like,
it is. And I think, right, we were sitting here talking about how basically the dollar is trash and whatnot. It's, losing value to goods and services. But right now in my personal portfolio, I have a bigger percentage of cash than I've ever had. And the reason is because I'm not going to use that cash to buy food. I'm not going to use that cash to buy insurance or transportation or gas. I want to use that cash to buy assets. And I think that assets such as stocks, maybe even commodities, or maybe in crypto, will be going down over the summer because of the Fed raising rates and all these things we talked about. And therefore, I want to have a higher cash position so I can take advantage of those opportunities when they actually do get cheap.
Gotcha. So you wouldn't say right now crypto right now is cheap for real because it's still tightly wound to the NASDAQ.
Well, it's never been cheap because you don't have a way of measuring its value. Right. It's not like oil. Like oil, as an example, you can determine, you can look at a historical chart and see adjusted for inflation when it gets cheap. And that's usually under $30. And when it gets expensive,
a barrel, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually over 80 or 85. Same thing with the housing market. I've got charts that go back to 1900 with the U.S. housing market adjusted for inflation.
Oh, or is it based off like the standard home 3.2?
Yeah, and it's adjusted for size. It was Robert Shiller, I think it's pretty much the underlying data comes from Shiller.
Yeah.
But you see when it gets expensive and when it gets cheap, and you can tell that it kind of reverts back to the mean, which makes a lot of sense because at the end of the day, it should be based on average interest rates and income, right? The price of homes.
Yeah, I think the median 3.2 right now in the United States is somewhere around 300K.
Yeah, so you'd have to see where it should be adjusted
which
for
is
inflation.
Up significantly from where it was before.
Yeah, I mean, it would be even higher than it was in 2006.
Yeah.
But what's really weird about the real estate market is it can go down in real terms and it can go up in nominal terms. So as an example, let's say that house that you just bought, it can appreciate by 5% every single year for the next 10 years, and you can still lose money.
Yeah.
How? Because if the rate of inflation goes up by 10% per year, then that's a negative 5%. So you're actually losing 5% of your purchasing power compounded year after year after year because the price appreciation of your home isn't keeping up with the rate of inflation. So if you look at my chart, like I was saying, go back.
But I leveraged it though. I only put 20% down.
Yeah. So if you only put 20% down, that's a great point.
That's I leveraged it. So that's how I made sure to, because I saw this coming. I was like, let me make sure that I beat the inflation. How am I going to do that? I'm going to do it with the leverage. So I only put 20% of my own money in, which I think came out all in. It was like 209,000.
Yeah.
So that's why. But yeah, I agree with you. If I had put more money down, oh Lord, that would have been bad.
Yeah. But so there's a balancing act there too, because you want to have a conservative LTV
for sure
in case you do go through a recession and you have to go through a few months where you don't have a renter, to cover that mortgage payment. So I think. Again, it's different for every person. Someone like you've got a consistent form of income outside of those rental properties that should be rather recession proof. I'm talking about this podcast.
Yeah.
But for other people, they might have a construction job as an example.
Agreed.
So if you've got a construction job and that's your only form of payment to make that mortgage other than the renter, you want to be conservative with that LTV on the loan for sure.
No, absolutely. You don't want to over leverage.
Yeah.
Well said.
What else here?
We got some more chats here.
Okay. Pat Stedman's Polish passport, $20. Are real estate investors pricing demographic trends? It worries me to pay current prices while I see headlines about crashing birth rates worldwide and the oldest baby boomers reaching age of mortality for the next 2 decades. Pricing demographic. He said demographic trends.
Yeah. So demographic, if we have fewer young people, that's the more young people you have, the more bullish it is for the housing market, because those are kids who will, in the next 5 or 10 years, start forming families.
Yeah.
And that's usually the number one catalyst to buying your first home.
Yeah.
So if you have fewer and fewer kids as a percentage of the population, that would be a headwind for real estate. And more people passing away, obviously, that creates more supply.
Yeah.
But if you have more kids that are going into those years where they're going to be buying a house, then that would be bullish.
Yeah. Well, millennials rent too, so that's another good. Well, it depends on what your goal is. Are you trying to sell homes or are you trying to rent? Like if you're trying to buy and hold like me and rent, fantastic. People are always going to want to rent. But it depends on what your goal is. And that's the thing with real estate. It depends. So many different people. You got your buyers and flippers. You got your construction people. You got your rehab people. You got all that. Where can we buy precious metals? Y'all are goats. Thank you so much. And that's from Zombie Man. Where can they get metals and you think is safe to get, George?
Well, just buying the physical.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Lynette Zhang. She's a good friend of mine.
Lynette
Peter
Zhang?
Schiff is a good friend of mine.
Okay. They sell hard metals?
Well, Lynette does. And
Lynette.
Peter, I don't know if he still owns his company or not. I think he does.
How do they get a hold of Lynette?
Or SD Boyne, I know is one that's very popular. But Lynette, her company, well, I've got her pin right here. It's ITM Trading. And she's just a great friend, but she has a very white glove type of service. So there's a bit of a premium there that you pay above spot.
Okay.
But for those people who just don't know, they just want something tailor made to their personal balance sheet or their, personal objectives, then that would be a great way
She'll
to go.
get you gold however you want it, whether it's a bar, coins, whatever.
Yeah, but what they'll do is they'll set up a kind of a consultation where they try to figure out what your objectives are personally, where other companies might sell it a little bit cheaper, a little bit less spread on spot, but yet they don't do any of that white glove stuff. They're just like, here's the gold bar.
Here's the gold, asshole. Get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. So it all depends what you want,
Okay. Ask this every time, but what do you think about Cardano? That's $20 from Keem Chillin'. I mean, guys, you could get whatever crypto you want. Cardano, a lot of people have it, but my biggest thing is like, just don't, go too crazy into the crypto where if it, like, you should be calm, right? Like right now, I know the crypto markets are crashing. People ask me, what are your thoughts on crypto? I'm like, oh, I'm good, bro. I don't care. Cause I got in early. I bought it at a good price. Even now I'm still up, even though the money's down, and I don't have a bunch of my net worth tied up in it. So I'm okay.
Yeah. Also, the money you put in crypto should be money that you don't need right now.
There you go.
So regardless of the fact of it going down or up, it should not affect you because it's money you don't need right now.
Yeah,
Perfect
that's the
point.
speculative portion of your balance of your portfolio. That's why I was saying, you got 10% in physical gold. That's insurance.
Okay.
You got the 80% in investments that has to pay you to own it. And then only 10% of that portfolio is in speculative assets, such as cryptocurrency or uranium, something like that. And so that's how I kind of set things up. And see one of the
That's
main
a
reasons.
fantastic. Can you repeat that real quick I don't think the people understood, like, that's a really good breakdown of how you keep your portfolio. Can you break that down for them one more time?
Sure.
Pay attention, guys.
We've got 10%, which I would define as insurance. So that would be physical gold.
Yep. Or silver or.
Yeah, mostly physical gold.
Okay.
And then we've got 80%, which I would define as an investment or investments.
Okay.
And that has to be something that pays you to own it. That's just my personal definition.
That pays you monthly, recurring?
That just pays you to own it, whether it's dividends, whether it's like a coal producer that pays you a 10% dividend, whether it's an oil producer, whether it's
it actively pays you. It's not just appreciating, it's paying you to.
That's right. It's paying you to own it.
Okay, perfect.
And then we've got 10% of the portfolio, which would be allocated to speculations. Now, those are assets that you think there's good asymmetry, but they don't pay you to own them. So Cardano or Bitcoin or uranium.
Yeah.
These are things that do not pay you to own them.
Yeah. Unless you stake your stuff, but do you really want to? Yeah.
And then you say, okay, but I think that long term there's a benefit there's a good cost or risk reward.
Yeah.
Then you go ahead and buy it, but that's a small portion of your portfolio, and you got to go back to the 80%. And one of the main reasons I like such a large percentage of the portfolio to pay you to own it, because it really hedges out a lot of your downside. So let's just say that you got these wildly volatile speculations, right?
Yeah.
Well, if they go down by 50%, you have no problem in holding them long term.
There you go.
Because you have so much cash flow coming in from the rest of your portfolio to offset that position. So it puts you in a mindset where you're not doing things emotionally.
Yes.
You're not being reactionary.
Yes.
You're being very prudent and disciplined. And that's a huge edge.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, that's why I'm kind of at myself right now. We got the podcast, I got my real estate stuff, whatever it may be. And that's the power of having like a business, guys, because it helps you generate income so that you can put it more into your assets that pay you back. You're taking earned income.
And you can contrast your mental well-being or or how efficient your decision-making process is, or how rational your decision-making process is with your portfolio of real estate that's paying you to own it with a little bit of crypto. And you contrast that to if you had 100% crypto.
Oh God, yeah.
You'd be making horrible decisions right now.
People
because
freaking out.
You'd be an emotional wreck because you've got 100% 100% of your net worth in crypto.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think, yes, it's great to have some at play there because there's good asymmetry, but you've got to be intelligent about the composition of your portfolio.
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing. You gotta have a good diversified portfolio from a composition standpoint where the volatile things aren't the majority of your wealth. I know a lot of guys that make a lot of money, but their investments are volatile in crypto, stock market, whatever else. They have, individual stocks, buying AMC and all this other stupid shit. And it's like, bro, your butthole's always gonna be clenched because you're gonna be nervous all the time.
Another great thing about having all that cash flow is it never puts you in a position of having to sell.
Bam.
Never.
That's that right there is a big key, because when you're you want to buy and hold, man, to really enjoy the fruits of your investments, man. You want to buy and hold, and selling is, unless it's really worth it. But I agree. I think buying and holding is
one of the best ways to make money in real estate is to find a motivated seller. You heard that term all the time.
Of course.
Motivated seller.
Yeah.
That's basically someone that can't make their mortgage payments and they're scared S-less, right?
Yeah.
And so they're just looking to sell immediately.
Yeah.
And you just happen to be there standing there with a bunch of cash. You can pretty much name your price.
Yep.
That's where you make money on the buy side. So the moral of the story is you never want to put yourself in the position of being a motivated seller.
Yeah.
Bam.
You want to take advantage of the motivated sellers. And if you have positive cash flow, and if you have all that cash flow coming in from the 80% of your portfolio, you're never going to be forced to sell any of those assets. And you're going to always have that leverage, and you're going to be the one calling the shots.
And that, my friends, is the secret. And I'm going to definitely, I'm going to start getting some gold, because I have silver. I don't have any gold. And I like that idea of 10% of your portfolio being insurance proof. That's really fantastic. That's a huge takeaway right there.
And physical,
George.
so it's outside of the banking system.
Bam.
Important.
Love that. Okay. Anything else here, Chris? Okay. Why do Coca-Cola stocks stay at $60? Don't know that.
Well, because they pay a good dividend. And when you get increasing interest rates, you get capital flows from high growth stocks to value stocks. So that's why you've seen the NASDAQ go down a lot more than the Dow or the S&P.
Okay. George, thoughts on ENS domains, and why do we let a private bank run our country?
Well, I don't know what an ENS domain is, but as far as a private bank run our country, this is the third central bank we've had. And our former American citizens, I think, understood the dangers of a central bank, and they got rid of them very quickly. But in 1913, this central bank came about, and I think we've become more and more addicted on the central planning, and to the detriment of the poor and middle class. But if it were up to me, I would get rid of the central bank as quickly as possible. I don't know why they still exist. I think because it's just, one of those things that people now are under the impression that we have to have one. The free market can't work by itself. We can't determine interest rates on our own.
Mm-hmm.
We need some sort of, we need these interest rates brought down off Mount Sinai, written in stone from all these people who aren't elected. And I don't agree with that. And but I don't know why exactly we still have a Federal Reserve.
Yeah. Okay. George, what country is giving you the best yield in your real estate portfolio?
Well, Colombia.
Colombia. You own properties down there, right?
A lot, yeah. And I just sold my last property here in the United States. I bought the majority of my real estate portfolio in 2012.
Okay.
And I just sold the last property probably a couple months ago. So I no longer have property here in the U.S.
Is Colombia just way better as far as
well, I've got a big edge there.
Okay.
Because it's a very inefficient market, so I can take advantage of those motivated sellers.
Okay.
And there's not much liquidity. Right. And they don't have, mortgages are much more difficult to get down there.
As an American citizen, huh?
Anybody, even Colombians.
Okay. I'm surprised that you're even able to, they let American citizens buy property down there?
Oh, yeah. It's just like the U.S. Any foreigner can buy real estate, and you have the same property rights.
Okay.
But because it's harder to get a mortgage down there, you have a lot less liquidity. So if you do have someone that has to sell, they can't just put it on the MLS and sell it in 2 or 3 days. It takes them maybe 6 months or a year to find a buyer. And if they desperately need cash and you're the only guy sitting there with money, you can pretty much name your price. So that's why I'm able to make so much money in Colombia, even on the ROI, even without using debt, because you can buy it sometimes 30, 40 cents.
If you don't mind me asking, what are we talking as far as cash on cash returns percentage wise? What are you averaging?
A lot, because
over 10, over 15?
as far as just cash on cash.
Yeah, just cash on cash.
Yeah. 12, 14%.
That's pretty
something
fucking
like
good.
that.
Pretty
But
good.
then when you look at the forced depreciation through buying at a discount and then doing a remodel, which I have my team do on all of them.
Oh,
You're making a lot more money than that, even
Okay.
if prices stay the same,
okay.
because you're buying at such a steep
You're
discount.
buying it cheap as hell, fixing it even at a discounted
Which
rate.
adds even more equity.
It adds
And
equity
even
to
at
the home.
market prices, even if they don't change, you're in it for 20 cents and now it's worth $1 and you're renting it out at a 12 or 14% cash on cash return.
Damn.
Fire.
Fantastic.
Need to go to Colombia.
Yeah, I guess I need to buy some property in Colombia now. Should I claim my crypto trades for 2021 taxes? That's $2 from Mario Valdez. Thoughts on Cardano ADA long term? We already talked about Cardano. George Gammon. I know you be seeing Volt INU on Twitter making noise. Currently 24 exchanges under 5 months since the April 16 migration. Probably nothing. Okay. And that's from Homie Clicks. And then JDS 10x. Hi FNF and Mr. Gammon. Why are stocks, crypto, and precious metals all down? What is good hedge
Because
investment now?
Fed's raising interest rates. Easy.
That's why. But he just told you guys what a good hedge is. Gold is a good hedge. Is starting an investment partnership a good idea with the current state of our economy? It depends on what you're trying to invest, bro. $20 in Nobunaga. I usually get gold bars from APMX. At least check it out and get an idea of the type of gold you can buy at the very least. Okay, I've never heard of them. Have you heard of them, George?
No.
Never? Okay. Does he know the connection between, and that was from, who was this
Nobunaga?
from? No, read that one. Kevin Samuels, rest in power. All right. Thanks, bro, for the donation. $5 from Cesar Romero. Does he know about the connection between Fed and the Bank of International Settlements going to Vatican?
Vatican.
Of the Vatican?
Yeah.
No, I haven't gone down that path. No.
Well, basically,
Easy answer.
there's a agenda basically where religion, the government, the elites, and the army all coming together to work towards this global agenda.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everything that we were talking about as far as Machiavelli and Malthus and the World Economic Forum and the Club of Rome, and this is what they've explicitly said. So I'm not taking anything and just trying to decipher, what they're implying. I'm just taking what they are just coming out and saying in their own blog posts, on their own YouTube videos. Like Klaus Schwab, as an example. I've got YouTube videos of him being interviewed saying that the greatest influence on his life was Henry Kissinger. He's saying that. So I think what I try to stick with, not that any of this other stuff isn't legitimate, but I try to stick with the stuff that they are just outright coming out and saying, and then trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Bam. All right. And then last two here. The government does not like stable coins. The recent Terra Luna UST crash was a collaboration between BlackRock and the U.S. government right around the time they're talking regulation. Coincidence? Potentially. $20 from Kemp King. Can y'all man a video on how, I think it means make a video on how to stake your coin, because it's hard trying to find video on YouTube on how to stake.
I did some staking as well with
it.
Hex. It's not hard to do. Just you got to have the right setup and right team. But yeah, it's good, man.
Okay. Yeah, we'll Fresh will do a video for you guys, because I think Fresh you stake Hex, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, guys, without so George, where can the people find you, man?
Just at my YouTube channel. It's just George Gammon. Last name is Gammon. I've got that channel. I've got a smaller channel where I just do live streams. It's called The Rebel Capitalist. We've got an investment conference coming up that I'm super excited about. It's here in Miami.
Okay.
June 24th to the 26th.
All right, pop
where
in.
we've got 12, 13 speakers like Doug Casey, Robert Kiyosaki. We've got Jeff Snyder. We've got Joseph Wang, who actually used to work at the Fed. And now he's, he was on the dark side. Now he's
on the good side.
Yeah.
So I'll have you back on in June then when you're here.
Yeah, we'd love to talk about it. I'd love to have you guys come to the conference.
Yeah, we'll come by.
I'm down.
Viewers want to check it out. It's rebelcapitalistlive.com is where they can see it. Actually, I think you were there at our first one.
Yeah, with Robert.
With Kiyosaki
and Rollo Samazi.
And Rollo, yeah, he is in the green room there. So it's a great setup. If anyone's interested in, becoming a better investor, protecting their assets, learning about crypto, gold, all the things that we were talking about, and a lot of the freedom and liberty stuff as well, there's going to be a fantastic conference for them.
Bam. Guys, go over there, get your money up.
Support George, man.
Being broke is unacceptable. Go check out George Gammon, guys. His content is fantastic. I'm subscribed to the channel. I watch him. Great stuff. We talked about so many things: reserve currency, petrodollar, crypto, real estate. We talked about precious metals, NWO, conspiracy theories, everything else like that.
The
man.
truth.
Check him out, guys, on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Especially go to subscribe to his channel. His links are all below. George, any last words for the people?
No, the minorities are here.
Bam.
They're
There
here.
they
I
are.
never
They
thought I'd be
are
able to
fucking
say that.
here,
I never
man.
thought I'd be able to say that on YouTube.
You know who this guy is?
All right, guys. We'll catch you back in a bit, man.
I don't know who this guy is. All right, cool.
I'll catch you guys. Peace.
Peace.